Hey friends, so this week we're going to do something slightly different. So normally I would show you like really cool shots, at least I think so. I would try to get like, so those close-up shots, and I'm going to do some of that. But what I thought I would do is I'm going to show you from the very beginning to the end of the project. So from the concepting to the drawing it out, to the sketching it, to the doing a rough painting, to then creating the digital file, to burning it, and then doing the hand painting itself. So I'm going to show you the whole process. I had a request from a family member to do the Sanderson Sisters. So from Hocus Pocus. So if you know anything about intellectual property rights, you know that that is owned by Disney. And it's probably even trademarked, which means Disney did not like you selling their stuff.
If you can't share, then you'll have to stay in the lobby for the rest of the
So I decided I'm going to do some fan art, and I'm going to give you the digital file for free. I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to make them and sell them, but I am going to show you the whole process and let you make your own if you want. I'll give you my file and you can paint up your own. So without further ado, this is Amok, Amok, Amok.
So here I'm just sketching out a very rough idea of where the shapes are going to be, where each figure is going to be, where the cauldron's going to be. The whole idea is to just give a very rough composition. It's only used to sort of be able to work for the next step, where you're trying to figure out lighting and where stuff's going to be in basic colors. So what I've done is I've used my phone camera to take a picture of it, and I brought it into a program called PinUp, which is something that I have. It's a drawing, painting program that I have on my tablet, which means I can paint right on the screen with the stylus. What I'm doing here is cleaning it up, getting basic lights and volumes, so like getting some shading, some highlights. I end up spending a little more time on this than I really should, but I love digital painting, so in this particular case, all I'm trying to do is figure out where the highest value light is going to be, and then also give myself a suggestion of what the colors should be, how I should paint it for when I get to that step. But mostly, I'm just trying to make sure that it makes sense volumetrically, if that makes any sense. It's about trying to use the highlights and the light to tell the story, to create these figures. And to do that, I kind of need to paint it in a little bit so I know where those highlights are and where I can use the cutout sections with the Lightbox and where I'm going to need to reinforce it with paint or light. But mostly it's just to give a rough idea of what it's going to kind of look like. This is definitely not an exact application. It's more of a suggestion to sort of work out shapes of light and where light hits and directional of light and that sort of thing. In this particular one, I because I love digital painting so much, I got a little bit more detail in her face here, and I struggled with it because the way she does that lip effect in the movie, that it's constant. When you've got it turned on an angle and you're trying to light it from below, figuring out how to suggest it without fully painting it out was the thing that I was trying to figure out. And the younger sister is the easiest one. It's kind of like traditional shapes and colors, so I can kind of freehand a lot of that stuff, and there's not a whole lot of challenging angles and stuff with this one. Though you'll notice that in the highlights I tried to suggest the fabric so that when I get to the next phase it makes it a little easier. So now what I've done is I've brought the painting over into Adobe Illustrator. Illustrator is definitely my favorite vector-based program. And it works really well with Lightburn you can import directly in. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to get the vector shapes. Here I'm trying to figure out, all right, how do I translate this painting into solid shapes that are simplified. I need to seriously simplify it in order to use it on the laser, just so it's suggested. I mean, could I do? Yes, I could burn it in there and etch it, but when you're trying to get that Lightbox look, you need more simplified shapes. And that's just what I'm trying to figure out, where the highlights are. And doing it on this face is me figuring it out. I get much better as I go along, trying to figure out how stylistically. And what I settled on is I wanted to make it look like a woodcut. So if you've seen any of the woodcut images, which I'll pop on the screen now, you know that it's you're using a chisel, and so I'm trying to create that kind of effect. It's not exact. And the other thing is that you can't quite, when you're trying to do a lightbox, you can't just do the highlights. You kind of need to define the shape so that if the lights are off and you're using it as a full lightbox by itself, you can see the shapes. And so even though like the back of that collar is not going to be lit, I need to kind of define it because I need to show the edge of the face. That's really what I'm doing. And here I'm picking up the highlights of the sleeve, and here again I'm struggling with trying to get that really cool facial expression I think she does with her mouth in the movie, and I don't think I ever like really succeeded at it, but it's there. It's suggestion. You can see it with just the lightbox look, and I when I get back to painting, I won't get I won't figure it out either. So that would be one I would probably try again, and move forward with that one and try to see if I could do something a little different. It works, but it's not perfect, but it never is. You are having to simplify shapes because you are creating a lightbox, and you can do suggestions, and sometimes you have to come back and cut stuff out so that it's structurally supportive, so it doesn't fall apart, or you don't have islands that just fall out, which when I get to maybe you can catch at the end. There is one spot that I missed that I had to then go back and in the shop fix, but you can see between the end of this stage and the next, see if you can catch it. So here I'm just trying to define the cauldron. I thought about a couple of different ideas, but having it just be the edges of it seemed kind of interesting, and allowed it to be dark, but also sort of like make it the highlight, like the fire was there. And now I'm taking it over to the size of the lightbox and then putting in the text. Here's where you got to get rid of the islands so that it doesn't fall. So you got to, a lot of times text, you convert it over to a shape and then you manipulate it so it won't stay there. And I'm just sizing it up, right where I want. And I felt like it was a little empty at the bottom and the top, so I put a little decoration in here. You'll notice there, that's the islands at the bottom. Those parts. Luckily, the laser cut it first, and so I can come back and fix it. But I come back and use those lines to sort of give that an option. And then here I'm just sort of shaping it all, trying to make the overall composition look good. So now I'm going to import it directly from Illustrator into Lightburn. The settings for this will be down in the description. So now I'm dropping in my Luan hardwood plywood, 5mm, into the laser, and we're going to get it cutting. Again, the settings for this will all be in the description. This is a 10-watt Creality. Alright, now that we got it cut out on the laser, it is time to start staining and painting. In this, I'm putting in a bit of the red wood stain, then I used walnut on top, and now I'm coming back in and sort of darkening the edges around with a poly surface acrylic. So it's mixing the polyacrylic with the stain itself, so it sits kind of on top of it. Now I'm painting in basic colors for each one of the sisters: green, reddish purple, and pink purple, just to sort of differentiate. I'm also mixing all the colors directly. I'll have a link in the description for this pack of colors if you want to buy it off of Amazon. I'm putting in light and shadow. It's all about layers. Every bit of it is about putting base color, putting your highlight, putting your dark, come back and do some more. At least for me, that's my process of painting, because it kind of replicates the way I digitally paint. And obviously the mediums are different, but in this particular case, I kind of think of it in those terms, so that's how I proceed about doing it. And in most cases, I'm trying to suggest it and trying to make sure that the cutouts, the light hits that and sort of reinforces it. This is meant to not be a full detailed painting. It's a suggestion. It should feel like part of a woodcut. It should feel part of aged a little bit, and like it's hanging up in the Sanderson's house in the museum. It's like a relic, and it's not exactly that, but I just kind of wanted to suggest that and have that feeling to it. Here I'm darkening the edges just so it pops that color a little bit, and so when the Lightbox comes out, it also reinforces the edges as well. Darkening the cauldron. And then what I've done is I've taken the water and black acrylic, and I am painting it on and then pulling it back off. It's just lightly shadowing stuff, but it only works on the acrylic. It does not work on the stain, so I can control it a little bit better. It's a little bit like putting a mask up. Here I wanted to suggest the fire without getting too strong with it. I just wanted it to maybe catch that large cutout at the bottom, so hopefully the light coming from there will hit that portion a little bit. Putting a little bit of shadow reinforcement and highlights on the cauldron. Again, trying to get a little bit of that fire color. Here I'm coming back with a straight silver, and I'm hoping that the silver will catch the light from the Lightbox. The idea is to have it hopefully change colors as the Lightbox changes colors. Now I'm just coming back in and sort of treating the edges with a dry brush, acrylic, and then I've come back with a little bit of silver so that it also pops some highlights. I kind of left the smoke out a little bit, didn't really cut that into this one even though it was on the sketch, but that kind of gives it some texture. All right, here is the final product. I think it turned out pretty well. I'm fairly happy with it. There's some things I'd change about it, but I really enjoyed creating this piece. It does indeed sort of catch some of the light. You'll notice that the silver kind of changes color with the box. And it really does look good by itself without the paint reinforcement. And both seem to, I feel like it works really well for both of that. So, amok.
All right, that's it. I hope you found it interesting and enjoyable. Maybe it helped you out a little bit. If it did, please like and subscribe. And every little bit helps the channel. And a link in the description for the digital file so you can have it yourself. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.